EPI is the world's largest data center design and operations training provider and has been dominating the market since they launched the world's first data center course in early 2000. Today, EPI has 12 courses delivered in 14 languages, and they are attended by thousands of data center professionals all over the world each year. So how does EPI bring a course from ground zero to the market, and what makes EPI courses so widely adopted around the world? Watch us on EPI 30 Minutes as we reveal the secrets behind the success of EPI courses. Hi, I'm Edward van Leent. I'm the Chairman and CEO for the EPI Group of Companies.
Hello, I am Jan Willem Moren. I am the CTO of EPI Group of Companies.
Hi, I'm Paige Fong, your host today. And we kick off the interview with Jan. Tell us, Jan, what is the EPI course development process?
Thank you, Paige. EPI uses a rigorous process for course development that should not be taken lightly. There are a number of departments and a lot of people involved, focusing mainly on the course itself. It starts with the exploration. Based on a job role and its scope, which are detailed in the EPI Data Center Competence Framework, and extensive research, the need for training is identified. Once the high-level outline is created, EXIN, the independent accreditation organization, of which Edward will talk more later on, gets involved in exam development. This includes the creation of the exam criteria, which will be used to populate the exam preparation guide, and also the creation of the exam questions. Then in the next phase, the detailed content is to be determined, which is the identification of the topics to be included in the course. This may go through a few rounds of comments before the final version is available, after which the actual course writing begins. Course writing is not limited to the course content only. EPI courses are supported by student manuals, which also need to be created. Also, behind the scenes, we are making use of several techniques to prepare our certified instructors for future course delivery. Once all the work is done, quality control takes over, after which the very important accreditation process takes place. All EPI courses are independently reviewed before they are released to the public, and this provides an extra layer of assurance to our students that EPI courses are fit for the industry, containing current and accurate information to assist our students in their career.
Thanks, Jan. That's a long answer to a short question and most enlightening. I don't think many people realize how much work goes into bringing a proper course to market, even before writing the contents. Another question for you, Jan. How do you decide what course to bring to market next?
Well, there are a few factors involved which determines what will be the next course. In some cases, it is based on an existing roadmap whereby the next course to be released will take place according to plan. Apart from that, EPI is constantly in touch with people in the industry who provide input for their needs. Also, EPI closely follows the industry as a whole, identifying market trends and movements which create a demand for learning and education.
Is the course roadmap based on the data center competence framework?
That is indeed correct. The EPI Data Center Competence Framework, which is commonly known as DCCF, provides a reference for 40 competences as required and applied at the data center workplace. These competences can be mapped to data center roles, which make it possible to identify the required and desired training for each role.
Well, thanks, Jan. Circling back to the course development process and specifically on the content, how do you design the content?
Course depending, EPI sources from a large group of industry experts and standards to assist in determining the content. A brainstorm session takes place and the outcome is documented in mind maps, which are further analyzed until a final version is created, after which the course writing works begin. Course development takes place in-house. When completion stages have been reached, reviews take place, which includes both internal and external subject matter experts to ensure correctness of the course materials.
That is a very comprehensive approach, which brings up another question. How do you ensure engagement and learning effectiveness?
EPI is making use of multiple course delivery vehicles, being ILT, VILT, and TOD, known as training on demand. With the differences in course delivery, there is also a difference in the learning experience when it comes to the engagement and effectiveness, which we have covered using several different techniques. What is similar for all delivery options is the experienced instructor our students can bank on to get the most out of the course. In an ILT and VILT class, the student can directly engage with the instructor, asking questions in real time. For our training on demand classes, real-time engagement is not possible, but students can send in their questions 24 hours per day, which will then be picked up by our instructors, promptly providing the students with the answer. Course depending, we make use of lab exercises, use sample questions, and breakout sessions for the students to optimize the learning experience.
Thanks again, Jan, for shedding the light. It's very informative. Edward, after we have listened to Jan, my next question is to you. What would you consider the most crucial stage of course development?
The key to any course is the job task analysis stage, as that ultimately will determine what will be in the course in terms of the course content. And obviously the course content should closely match the knowledge a candidate will require for his or her job role.
So what obstacles or challenges do you face in curriculum design, and how do you overcome them?
Well, we're dealing with many different types of organizations. Some are small, where you might have somebody wearing multiple hats. And we're also dealing with very large organizations where you might even have different levels, such as, say, a junior, a senior, and an expert for one of the domain knowledges, for example, electrical. So on top of that, we're also dealing with data centers around the world, where the level of knowledge and experience might be, different. Besides that, we have to deal with a variety of languages, which we support, as well as the different delivery vehicles like what Jan mentioned, such as the classroom, virtual instructor-led training, as well as the training on demand via the EPI Academy portal. So all that requires a lot of discussions in order to optimize the balance between, those various parameters and requirements that we face.
That is a lot of factors to consider, Edward. So what metrics do you use to determine the success of the course?
Well, ultimately, it's customer satisfaction, right? That's the key measure point that we have to take into consideration. So we carefully evaluate the various feedback loops that we have to understand what the customer appreciates in our course and what potential changes they would like to see either in the current material or for the future. So this is a very complex process as we have multiple sources of information where the feedback comes from. This might be the trainer based on the feedback during the class, the evaluation forms that we have, as well as other channels such as the partner network, the website, the account managers that are talking to the various organizations. So as mentioned before, we have to deal with many factors that influence the satisfaction levels from different parts of the world and different types of organizations. So all this information and parameters need to be put in a right context, and then from there we need to decide what to do. And that could very well mean that some of the requests that customers have simply cannot be implemented because they might be, very dependent on an organization or the country or certain industry. So again, we deliver our courses in over 60 countries. And as you can imagine, it's simply sheer impossible to create a specific version for each of those countries.
Thanks for the clarification, Edward. I have another question for you. Many training providers in the market issue their own exams and certificate. However, EPI courses and certifications are accredited by an external accreditation company. Why do you choose to use an external party and not do everything in-house?
All right. Well, we firmly believe in what we call the 4I principle. And basically, in our view, that gives an impartial review, making sure that the courses that we have are evaluated objectively. Of course, we do have our own internal review process, where one person or a group of persons might develop, and the other group or person might review and provide feedback. But we want to make sure that there is an impartial review which evaluates not only whether we are staying vendor neutral and in conformity, obviously, with various standards, but also that from an educational point of view, our material is well designed and structured. So we made sure that the organization that we use for accreditation, which is EXIN, has domain knowledge from the IT and data center industry. And through their capabilities, we have great governance over our courses, which ultimately, obviously, benefits the customer.
Excellent point. I can see how this establishes the value of EPI's training and certifications. But why do EPI courses have only one accreditation?
Well, that's a very good question because, frankly speaking, a lot of customers get blindsided when they see a brochure of another organization where they might have 5 or 10 different logos of various what they call accrediting organizations. The fact is very simple. You take only one exam. Hence, there is only one true accreditation where the material and exam mapping has been done. And that is why we have chosen for a single prominent global accreditation player, which is an organization who specializes in the IT and data center industry. When you are seeing as a customer multiple logos on a brochure, then most of it is not true accreditation, but they are basically kind of endorsements. So where the course provider has submitted their information to that particular party and they just give a stamp of approval or an endorsement. So that is very, very different from accreditation.
Thanks for the straight talk, Edward. I do hope more people will get to hear this so they can make better informed decisions when it comes to choosing a training provider. These days on the internet, one can find a tremendous amount of information, which can be very baffling. I myself have seen many websites presenting themselves as accreditation authorities, and they look pretty legit too. So how do we know whether they are legitimate or not?
This is indeed an issue in the industry, as there are plenty of unscrupulous individuals and organizations in the market who earn, or maybe I should say, steal money from people with fake accreditation of courses. They simply don't care. What they do has a potential direct impact on the student who try to invest in their career and do a better job for the company. They just copy material left and right, come up with fake accreditation and certification, and after having stolen people's money, leave them behind with a fake piece of paper which really holds no value for them. My recommendation is to always check around before you invest. Check the reputation and watch out for fake review websites, as those are typically related to the very same people.
Thank you, Edward. That is an extremely useful piece of advice. Bear with me for one final question. Why do EPI certificates have a 3-year validity?
It is important for anybody to make sure that the skills, knowledge, and competence are being kept up to date. Just look at any other industry, like, for example, the airline industry or the healthcare industry. There is a constant drive of excellence and improvement, as well as validation that the person is still able to perform well. Sometimes customers tell us, that they work in the data center environment, so they automatically are being kept up to date. Well, if that was true, then pilots didn't need to be retrained and retested, right? They fly every day, so why would they need to be taking new training and being retested? Sometimes customers react with the fact that if a pilot makes a mistake, that lives could be at stake, and it could be very fatal. Well, what about the data center, right? What if the data center professional make a mistake? We all have seen major disruptions that could be caused by the business going down, etc. What about the mistake in a data center that is serving a hospital and the doctor is about to do an operation and needs critical information? Hence, lives could literally also be at stake if a data center goes down. Therefore, anybody in this type of profession needs to make sure that they are a top performer and being well kept up to date.
Thank you, Edward and Jan, for the candid and straightforward talk. We have now come to the end and we are ready to take questions from the audience. Well, okay, I'm looking through the questions now. I have one question to address to Jan. Jan, the question from one of the audience is, my HR is asking me to recommend training plans for the people in my team whom have a variety of roles. I would like to ask if EPI does consulting on this area and what is the fee?
Good question. We get the similar question on a regular basis, and we can certainly accommodate in helping out, creating a training plan for a number of roles and responsibilities, so to speak. We have an excellent tool for it, developed in-house, which helps us to assist our customers in creating the overview, which we typically do at no cost at all. It is called the DCPT, the Data Center Career Planning Tool, and we are more than happy to help out as and where we can.
Thank you, Jan. Okay, I see another question, and I think this is for Edward. Edward, the question is, I would like to attend a course with EPI, but it is difficult to get my company to sponsor the training. Do you have any suggestions?
Find another company, or you know. Yeah, it can be tough, right? Obviously, every organization has certain budgets, and you know they try to maximize it as best as possible. If you're not able to, you know, get company sponsored, then maybe one option could be to look at our training on demand program, which runs through EPI Academy. That is a more cost-efficient option, I would say, that might be more attractive for personal investment. I know that in some countries, Singapore, where I'm based, is one of them. There are various government subsidized programs like Skills Future and SITREP, etc., for which we have the approvals. So that might help, you know, in selected countries to get some benefit from the government investment in you.
Thank you, Edward. We have a question from MTEL Mauritius. He's asking if it's possible to have training in the time zone of GMT +4, because what I have seen so far is most of our training are in GMT +5 or +8. Edward?
Yeah, it all is a bit difficult. We have two time zones where we do predominantly the virtual classes in, which is the European time zone and the Asia time zone, because the folks in the Middle East, they tend to either go to either one of those time zones. That seems to be convenient. Depending on the course itself, we might schedule also virtual classes direct for the Middle Eastern time zone. And that depends a little bit on demand. That is under review at the moment, because we see more and more people from the Middle East either going into the European or the Asia Pacific time zone classes. So, you know, volume allowing, we're looking into organizing dedicated classes for that time zone.
Yeah. Thanks, Edward. Okay, I have some engineers who have 5 to 10 years experience. Can I just order the exams for them instead of having them take the course?
That one is for me as well, right?
Yes, Jan.
Okay, yeah, sure, yeah. Well, yeah, again, a question that we come across on a regular basis. Having listened to Edward's final explanation during the interview, I think I would like to continue talking onwards. For example, if you take a flight as a individual, either for leisure or business, you certainly hope that the captain in the cockpit is certified. So I don't believe in the real world that someone who has the ambitions to become a pilot goes to any official instance to say, hey, I'm ready for it, and I want to take a flight today so that I can pass my pilot license. That will not happen. Even while the individual may then be able to say, well, I have been flying already for so many years, and therefore it's a walk in the park. How do we know that this individual has been doing all this correctly, right? So it would be quite bold, to be honest, to take a guess or gamble, to just skip all the theoretical material and go to the exam right away. Furthermore, I think as a student, you would not exactly know what the content of the course is about, and therefore you would not really know how to approach the questions and the answers for the same. So rather spending your money on an exam with a big chance to fail the exam, it would be a better option to simply attend the class, to formally learn about the content, to formally learn how things are being done in the industry, following standards, best practices, etc. And of course, while doing so, if it is an ILT class, you then also have the luxury of being able to interact with the instructor and other students. So in short, it is not possible to do the exam right away. You have to follow the course, and after the course, you can take the exam accordingly.
Thank you, Jan. I think Edward agrees with you too.
Yeah, I would like to hook into that because obviously the training is all about, adding competences to somebody's repertoire, right? It's some people are very good at studying for an exam by just, drumming up the facts that they might have read in the book while not understanding the concepts and the background why certain things are done in a certain way. So yes, I can memorize the 3 different type of batteries very easily by just memorizing them and then answer the exam. But to understand what is applied when and why, I think that's fundamental information. So it's all about teaching competence. And that's where what Jan alluded to earlier, when we build our courseware, we don't just make up a fancy exam to, make it difficult for people to pass. We're really looking at, say, what is the skill that people need to acquire to work professionally into the data center. And then we start building the exam criteria. And after that, the supporting slide deck. So it's all about building competence. That's the important part.
Thank you, Edward. I have another question here for Edward. In our company, there is tension between engineering and sales, as sales don't always know the issues engineering face or because of pressure from the customers. Do you have any course that can help resolve this problem?
Yeah, that must be a question from somebody who is in the commercial data center space, which is the typical thing that happens, that the salesperson gets involved with a company that like to take up space, and they, kind of like want to lock the customer in, of course, as best as they can. And that results sometimes in a bit of overselling or making things a little bit more easier for the customer, so to speak. And then engineering has to actually implement it. The best thing that we see in those scenarios is for somebody of the engineering team as well as from the sales team actually attend the same course, for example, CDCP or DCFC, which are, the foundation courses, because then you will see that they get appreciation for each other in terms of, the engineers will understand a little bit more about the sales cycle. And obviously as a salesperson, you need to make sure you are flexible to meet the customer demands. And the salesperson will then also understand that you cannot just promise, 3 kilowatt racks to become 6 kilowatt racks because it has an impact on the power infrastructure, the cooling infrastructure, etc. So by having them in the same class, they understand and respect a little bit more the limitations of the infrastructure and its design and how that could influence each other. So put them in the same classroom, and then, DCFC or CDCP would be a great one to start with.
Very good advice. Right, let me see. Okay, I have a question for Jan. This is the question from the floor. We are looking at data center sustainability. I would like to know more about this area and what I can do to improve our DC sustainability requirements. do you have any advice?
Yes, I think first of all, in general, there are by now a number of standards available which extensively address this topic. Also, many countries come out with regulations, which I think is very important that you as an individual take note of if you are working in the industry line, the data center, whereby you as an organization, you need to conform. Since after all, while not doing so, you may end up in very big trouble. So yes, there is plenty available. And from a course point of view, currently our CDFOS and CDFOM, these are the operations courses, address environmental sustainability. And there will be something happening soon as well, whereby hopefully I'm not talking in front of official announcements, but there will be a dedicated source coming soon, specifically on environmental sustainability.
Well, thank you, Jan. We can take one more question, and let me see. The question is to Edwards, right? What are your views on the data center training trends?
Okay. I think, especially now in this COVID world, so to speak, we see more and more the need, obviously, for remote type of training, like interactive training through a virtual classroom, similar a bit like this setting. We also see more demand now for training on demand. And what we've seen is that, people that sit at home, they sometimes have, half an hour that they would like to do something different, and they would like to jump on a course rather than sitting 2 days or 3 days behind a screen. So we see a trend developing that people like to take pieces of information to them whenever they actually really feel like it and have time to do so. Because it's quite difficult, I think, for most of you who have now started working from home. It is quite tough to sit 6, 7, 8 hours behind the screen, so to speak. And the attention span of people tend to be less behind the screen than it is in the classroom, where obviously the trainer, could see the people dwindling off a little bit and, create a break, etc. So online learning, blended learning, those are some of the trends. And I see also a bit of a trend that people like to specifically look at certain topics rather than maybe sitting for 2, 3 days addressing multiple topics, even though they might comprehend those topics already. So they like to get a bit more piecemeal information, sometimes specific to a project. We have seen customers that might do migration, right, into cloud type of environments, and they would like to hear just about that, and they're not so bothered about power and cooling because that is already taken care of by the provider themselves. So customized learning, hybrid learning, remote learning, those are some of the key things that are happening in the market at this moment.